Alright, welcome back to another video, guys. Today I want to talk about something that's very important, I think, for most people that are kind of struggling with improving their communications. And this title of the video is Why You Don't Sound Like You Want to Be and 5 Steps to Sound Better Instantly. Now, over the 5 years of me putting videos on YouTube, one of my main goals of making videos of myself was not camera confidence, was not about trying to find new ways or new multiple ways of just kind of expressing myself. But the premise or the most important part of me making videos was to kind of get more confidence of speaking. Growing up, I always struggled with communications. I didn't really like my voice. I struggled talking to girls. I struggled with making friends because I was kind of inadequate building connections with my expression, with my emotions, and kind of showcasing my personality to people. Because at the end of the day, if you cannot, even if you have a brilliant personality, if you cannot communicate your personality to someone, no one will build resonance with you. And that kind of is the unfortunate truth. So if you're in my shoes earlier, and if you're like my younger version of myself struggling with communications, I want to tell you about these 5 ways to really improve your communications at the next level. And I can promise you that you'll see a great, tremendous change in how you speak to people. So the first one is understand the 5 pillars of great speakers. If you really pay attention to most speakers that you admire, you realize that they tend to use breathing at its most professional level, posture and body language, volume, tonality, and pauses. And I'll break down these points to clarify further. But when it comes to breathing, what tends to happen, what I wasn't aware of earlier in my days, is in the earlier days of me trying to improve my communications, was that I tended to kind of breathe shallow, and I realized that my chest would pop out every time when I took inhale and exhaled, and it wasn't really from the diaphragmatic support. Like, there wasn't really much emphasis on my belly. So if you actually, I want you to practice right now. Just take a breath in right now, just inhale and then exhale. If you weren't aware, you realize that you tend to breathe from your chest, which I think it has a big problem with your communications, because some people actually run out of breath when they're speaking for longer duration. So how to battle that, or how to avoid that, in a better word is how to avoid that, is actually from diaphragmatic support breathing. So kind of focus on your belly now. When you inhale and exhale, you realize that you actually, when you're exhaling or when you're inhaling, your belly will pop out, and when you exhale, your belly will come back in. And that's actually a better way of breathing, which will actually improve a lot in your communications. Now, posture and open body language is obviously kind of is what it says over there. Is just, you want to have your chest popped out more back, and then have relaxed shoulders so you don't feel or look so tensed. And this is a really good practice of just allowing to breathe more, having more oxygen in your breath, so you can speak better and you can speak with more resonance and even more deeper voice. The third is volume. I think majority of people struggle with volume. I think for me as well. We tend to, when it comes to surroundings, when it comes to being in public in general, you tend to not use enough volume, and you're not able to grab people's attention. And that's one of the key issues when it comes to communications for yourself, is that you're not able to increase your volume. And I really struggled with that, because I tend to kind of like look down a little bit and then talk a little bit soft. So I think one of the best tips I could give you when it comes to volume is to really really use your body language when you're speaking. And if you realize, if you like kind of swing your arms a little bit when you're trying to express something, your volume actually mimics your body language. So if you tend to be this person, which I used to be, is if you don't really use your body when you're speaking, then you kind of sound like this, and you don't really want to express yourself. And then what's even worse is you tend to also change your tonality, and it kind of becomes monotone. So everything comes to body language. And if you really want to change your volume, try to use a wider, bigger body language, and it will really increase your volume. Or the other best practice is, like, sometimes just really express yourself out and shout. Make sure there's no people around you, but really try to see how loud you can get. And that has a best, and it's really good for you. It's really good for your communications journey. Fourth is tonality. Let's kind of speed it up. So tonality is like the emotions behind your voice. The more it's like when it comes to talking something sad, then you should actually talk in a sad voice. Like, don't have a monotone when you're expressing something when it comes to something sad. Like if someone, like one of your friend, grandparents passed away, then when you talk about it to your friend, don't talk in a monotone. Like really use your instrument, which is your voice, with variability and change the tonality of your emotions behind the voice. And this one is pause. So it's so important whenever you speak, you want to make sure that you pause. Otherwise, people are not able to process the value or the information that you've given them. So when you pause, it kind of allows them to process what they're saying. And I just kind of did that a little bit. It's like when I'm trying to express myself, I want to pause sometimes to let them process what I'm trying to say. And it really does leave a great impression in your communications. Second is kind of like this practice that I think will help you tremendously. So when it comes to 3 vocal exercises before speaking, so whatever I'm doing right now, before this video, I was trying to do these exercises to warm up my lips, warm up my mouth. And it's kind of like an instrument, right? Like when you play, so I have a guitar right here, like it's like an instrument. Before I start strumming and play music, any kind of music, I'm going to start tuning my instrument first. And it's kind of the same for your voice. You want to first prepare your voice, your mouth movements before you start speaking. Otherwise, you're going to sound awkward. You're going to sound weird. It's just the way it is. So you want to do these exercises for really speaking better before your friend's gathering, or before a eulogy, before you speak on the stage for an event, any event. So the first is lip trills. It's kind of like a motorboat sound for your breath control. So it's kind of just like, so you can do this for 3 minutes. Forgot to mention 3 minutes, right? So you can do this for 3 minutes. And then yawning. So Morgan Freeman is kind of notorious for yawning, and a lot of people ask him about his attractive voice, whatever you want to say online, but he is notorious for yawning. And what's basically happening is you're really relaxing your throat when you yawn. And there's actually a lot of science behind it too. I'm not able to pull it up right here, but if you go on PubMed or look at other YouTube videos about yawning and its benefits for communications, you'll find a lot of videos. But I think it goes along the lines of how it kind of stretches your roof of your mouth, and somehow it increases the surface area of your mouth, and that allows you to sound deeper or sound more articulate. And then lastly, 3 minutes of this one, which is called the tongue twisters for articulation. So I think one of the misconceptions of people having accents and how they feel uncomfortable speaking English is because of their accents holding them back. But that's not true. Reality is that your articulation needs work, and it's not your accent. So what you could do is you start doing tongue twisters. So go on ChatGPT or any AI software, or even Google, and just search over some tongue twister practices and read them out loud. Try to speed up as you read more, as you practice more for 3 minutes. So before any event, you don't have to do all these 3, but I think if you could just mix and match these practices, you will drastically improve your instrument because now you're tuning it. Get rid of these distractions. One of my favorite quotes is, "If it distracts people from the message, it is a problem." And this is by a professional keynote speaker, Vin Jiang. And he's basically saying, you want to avoid these filler words like because it kind of dilutes your authority. And I think it makes a lot of sense, because if you listen to a lot of listeners, or maybe, let's say a really good example for me is one of my college classrooms. We had a couple people asking for questions, and whenever it comes to, they'll raise their hands or ask questions to the professor, and half the time when they ask the questions, all I heard was and ahs, and while they're thinking. So a really good substitute for those words is pauses, like I mentioned earlier, which kind of allows the professor or the listener to process the question or the information that you're trying to speak to them. So replace the filler words, which kind of distracts people from your message, which is a big problem because you want to have a clear message, and just use pauses instead. First, it could be quite intimidating when it comes to pauses. But here's the other thing that I recommend if you feel uncomfortable with pauses is record in spot, right? So record yourself on your phone and just talk about anything that you want to talk about. It doesn't really have to be important. It could be, you could also ramble. But after like a minute of recording, watch yourself and see and spot yourself how many times you tend to use the filler words, and record again and practice how it looks like when you pause instead. And this will really make a big difference, guys. Sometimes it just comes down to the easy, simple processes that can really get you to the next level when it comes to speaking clearly and speaking with more resonance. Right, so sharpen your mouth movements. I think I mentioned about articulation. This is more of an emphasis on that note, but when you sharpen your mouth movements, one of the flaws of having an accent, or at least one of the bad practices of having an accent when it comes to different languages is, let's say you are an Indian and you grew up speaking Hindi or a different language, because in India there's multiple languages. But let's say you speak Hindi for most of your life, and in classroom settings you learned English. The things that you didn't pick up when you learned English is the mouth movements. How do native English speakers move their mouth when they speak English? And if you really pay attention to foreign speakers speaking English and native English speakers speaking English, is the way they move their mouths. So most English speakers have an over-exaggerated mouth shape. They move their mouth slowly, and they tend to, really express themselves with wider and bigger mouth movements. And that's really how it gives that crisp accent. Not because if you listen to a lot of foreign speakers speak English, it tends to be the mouth movements are a lot smaller, and it just seems like it's kind of easy to catch that. So huge benefit is just practice exaggerated mouth movements. And you could just read children's book while doing it, which is a great practice, because now there's a lot of emotion and expression, self-expression, descriptive writing in children's books. So you could read those. I know it kind of sounds childish, but you kind of have to be childlike to really improve your communications, because in the end it's an instrument and you want to use different keynotes to sound really nice. So yeah, make bigger mouth movements to really make that crisp accent. And then lastly, it's just, daily practice. Build a practice of your communications. Do those warm-ups that I gave you, the vocal exercises, and then record yourself speaking. Have like a 1-minute selfie video of yourself talking. Remember to breathe properly, get rid of the filler words, and talk with more clarity. Also realize that you have A and B tests. So what are the paces that you tend to use, your energy levels when you speak. And then the best practice is to ask your peers for a quick what stood out feedback, because at the end of the day, if you have a partner or a friend that helps you with your communications, it will be a lot better and faster, and you'll see rewards a lot better. And if that's not the case, the other practice I recommend is just record yourself, right? The first one, warm up and record yourself, and then look at these points that I mentioned today, and then look at your video again and see what you need to work on: your body language, the way you speak, the speed of your speech, and just so many things you can work on. I recommend you tackle one by one, otherwise it gets really intimidating. So yeah, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope it helped. Do subscribe to the channel if you enjoy content like this, and I'm trying out this kind of a new content, so I'm pretty excited, and I'll be sharing more videos in the future. Thank you guys for watching.